Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels, and we're going back to that horrible world known as the JRC. But before we do, the usual disclaimers. I'm going to be shooting straight through all of this, folks. I'm going to try to keep my rantings on real life because the GOP is stupid to a minimum. But before I do, just give me a moment here, all right? Gotta fix my appearance a little bit. Please forgive the ugly mug. I don't have much of an ego, folks, but I got smidgen. One moment. Bear with me here. Where did I put that coat? Oh. Sorry. We do not have an edit button, folks. Sorry. There we go. Better. A little bit better. Alright, let's get to the disclaimers. In the description box, you're going to find a link to the article that the Dutz Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read. It's written by NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much. They've threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. NeuroClastic has refused, so folks, you know the drill. Please read that article and share it on all of your social media. Also in there, you're going to find the link to NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are actually crowdfunding, folks, in case the JRC actually sees through with their threat. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to move the computer up closer to my ugly mug. My apologies in advance. I don't always look best on computer cameras, folks, and I don't have money for the really expensive good stuff, all right? Anyways, moving on. Also included in there, the link to the Ozarks first article in regards to the Agape boarding school, also known as Stone for Help boarding school situation, a so-called Christian-themed boarding school. Christian. Based out of Stockton, Missouri, that takes in so-called troubled male teens, that has impending over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all which have been substantiated by the Missouri Department of Social Services, and they include the following: sodomy, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, child trafficking, starvation, and folks, that's just for starters. You have one former staff member arrested by the FBI, another a doctor who still lives on the premises with full access to the boys, up on multiple, again, substantiated claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault of the boys there. You have an attorney general too busy chasing after and lying about drag queens. I will try not to get into a rant about that because, God, it's just getting worse, people. Not just for the drags, not just for the trans, not just for the LGBTQ, but because these idiots don't care who they hurt with their propaganda. They are now, in my state, denying autistics right to bodily autonomy when it comes to medical decisions. Great, right? Anyways, we got a current governor. I don't know what to even tell you about our governor at this point, so send help. Please read that article and share it on all your social media. Also included in there, all the pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign, including a link to this assessment here by Dr. Fredda, as well as Hoya's massive archive on the subject, Jennifer Masemba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andre McCollins back in 2002, The templates and the ever-present self-explanatory change.org shut the Judge Rotenberg Center down petition. When we discuss the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of, catch clips of surveillance footage of people with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, folks, please use your headphones, all right? Trigger warning, this channel is marked not for children for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and we speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger, they are watching this. Very obviously, folks, parental supervision is very much advised, all right? Whew. All right. Now, let's get back to where we were last week before I go off on another rant because I can feel it building. I feel it. Remind me not to check Twitter between vids for the sake of my own sanity. The proposed behavior modification treatment plan identifies appropriate replacement or alternative behaviors for X. However, these behaviors are not communicative alternatives and do not meet any skill deficits which would allow her to more independently fulfill her needs. I know what we're reading, but some of this stuff needs to be reiterated. For those of us who work in the field, if you are trying to do replacement or alternative behaviors, and what you're giving us does have zero functionability out there in the real world, what is the point? Saying. That is, they do not serve the same function as the challenging behavior and do not allow her more independence or control. For example, page 7 includes accurately signing yes as a replacement behavior. For what? Okay, I got questions. I got questions here. How is accurately signing yes a replacement behavior? And if it is, what behavior is it replacing? It makes me also kind of look at this because accurately signing yes, is JRC trying to get them to sign off on this crap? Is that why it's a replacement behavior to oppose to what? Saying no? Because according to our society, and particularly GOP right now, many people don't think us autistics have the right to bodily autonomy. And it's not in any way, shape, or form just within a small group of people who think this. Great, right? Yay me! Get me out of this state. I've built up good karma. Ugh. Sorry. And remember when we talked about escape? Let's go over this again. Indeed, escape is hypothesized to be a major function of behaviors. No should be the sign that is taught. If we're in escape, people, you got to question, why are we in escape mode? Well, you just can't escape every time. Okay, what's happening to make the person who's autistic or otherwise disabled feel the strong need to escape? This is what I mean when you study the behavior, but you're not studying the cause behind the behavior. You're basically shooting yourself in the foot. What is even the point at that point? No. Using the toilet, following directions, not pushing objects placed near her, etc., are not offering X ways of communicating what she intends to say. I don't want to do this. I want attention. I want to go somewhere. Again, I will say this for the millionth time. I am so tired of everybody, and they've been trying to push this on autistics for years, that you're just doing these bizarre behaviors because you want attention. No, Karen. No, I don't. It's the last thing I want. I didn't want it when I was a kid either. No, believe me? Go ask my mother how many times she heard me yelling behind the closed door of my bedroom, I don't want to come out. I want to be left alone and read. Because I said it enough time that it is blazoned in the back of her mind, and for the love of God, I swear if she closes her eyes, she can still see and hear the whole thing. We don't want attention. We're not trying to manipulate you. Our brains work differently. For the love of God, can the medical model please catch up with the fact, after all the studies and all the MRIs that I and many other older autistics have been a part of, can we please finally wrap our brains, our neurotypical brains, around the concept that atypical brains and neurodivergent people do not function like yours? Our motivations are not the same as yours. And for the love of God, you're not actually understanding anything if you are superimposing onto us what would be your motivations in the same situation, because your brain and my brain are not the same. I'm not saying one's better and one's worse. I know which one I prefer, which would be the one I have. Our brains don't work the same. We are not the same. I don't like to be othered, but I'm also going to state reality. Therefore, the things that would motivate you into the type of behaviors that you're seeing come out of us does not apply, because you aren't us. See where I'm going here? You are treating a problem that isn't a problem. You're treating me for something that you think this is why I'm doing it when it's not. Which, what does that mean? That particular intervention is essentially useless. But let's go on, shall we? While X's problem behaviors may indeed be reduced at this point in time, it's because the punishment that has occurred, the Ged water spray, and the threat of continued punishment. However, X is not being taught skills that will allow her to manage her own behavior without the threat of punishment. It's unlikely what X wants to express will change, regardless of change in behavior. Thus, it is critical that she be provided with communication skills that offer her appropriate ways to communicate these same messages. Exactly. But people like the JRC don't actually want autistics to communicate. Because when we get the appropriate communication skills in a way that can come across to where it can be easily understood by neurotypical society, we tend to expose a lot of bullshit. It's kind of our MO. NeuroClastic said it best when she said that chaos is the song of our people. I wouldn't say it's chaos, but we're truth tellers. We like facts, we like evidence. We call a spade a spade. We have no filters, and for the love of God, we do not care about your feelings. Or maybe it's just me. I'm pretty jaded at this point. I don't care about anybody's feelings anymore. If you're offended, there's the door. You know? But I get off topic. Let's go back to where we were. I said I'd try to not rant, but I'm kind of in a mood today. Learning to nod yes or no, or label objects in an environment chosen by others does not accomplish what is needed. Thank you. This has zero value in the real world. Zero value. All this does is just, let's try to program autistics like they're robots. Oh, wait, they're not robots? Shock them. That'll make it happen. Yeah. The closest thing we have to human robots, at least to this part of development, would be people, and Paul takes this as a compliment, so don't get offended on his behalf, but people like him and his twin sister are the closest we have to human robots. Thing is, they're more of the programmer bots than they are to be programmed. Just saying. They're the programs that watch you on the internet and note things down and then start to... You get the point.
I had two friends at a dinner party get into an argument over whether I was more like Data or Spock. And my little sister settled it by explaining to him that she and I are more like Lore, Data's evil twin.
We say this, we're not trying to insinuate anything, but mainly it's this ridiculous idea that autistics are unfeeling robots. We're not. We're actually more emotional than most neurotypicals. The difference between us and neurotypical is in how we process that. I do not allow my emotions to rule my decisions, regardless of how strong they are. Logic does. Much to my mother and stepdad's relief, I'm sure. But let's move on. All right. Carr and Duran, 1985, demonstrated the importance of matching the communication and function. Following a functional analysis of the challenging behaviors of 4 students, students were taught communications that either matched the assessed function or responses that did not match the function of challenging behavior, irrelevant responses. Exactly. And what does the JRC teach? Stupidity. They teach stunted responses. If someone asks for your name, you should not be punished for not saying a whole sentence and then giving your name when that's not necessary. We already got a target on our backs. If you're doing stuff like that out in the real world, you might as well just have a freaking Wile E. Coyote sign with an arrow down saying, "Look, vulnerable disabled person here." Just saying. In each case, the student's challenging behavior was reduced only when they used communicative response that matched the function of that behavior. The behavior problems were not reduced when they were taught responses that did not match the function of the problem behavior. This makes coherent, logical sense, people. Granted, the ABA crap has its own issues, which I'm going to continue to point out, like what they think our motivations are, because they, for some reason, think all of their motivations can also be applied to atypical people. That's its own. Eventually, when the JRC is a thing of the past, I may finally start to break down some of this ABA insanity. Here's hoping it's sooner rather than later, right? But let's move on. The behavior problems were not reduced when they were taught responses that did not match the function of the problem behavior. Without effective replacement behavior that serves the same function as the problem behavior, it's not likely that X will maintain any behavior reductions if the punishment were to be removed. What did I say, folks? Fear only lasts so long. As long as you don't deal with what is actually triggering the behavior and instead rule through tyranny and fear, that behavior response that you're wanting to get will only last as long as the threat does. Pick up a history book sometime. This is true of neurotypicals and atypicals. This certainly is not a good prospect for X's future. The goal of any behavioral program is to reduce external or artificial means of behavioral control, and to have each individual learn the adaptive behavior necessary to function as independently as possible in integrated settings. This is one of my big problems with places like the JRC. They are the most extreme, but they are by far not alone. When you do all of these things in a box, I mean, if you think about it, they get their haircuts there, they get their playrooms and their theaters there. When you have to earn the right to go out into the community, all of this defeats the purpose. If you are trying to make them as independent as possible, the idea should be able to integrate them into their community. You can't do that when you're secluding them in the box and you're forcing them to earn the right to socially interact in the community. Because I can tell you, we're going to not choose to interact with society if we can help it. Those of us who are older realize we have to. Some of us have found activities out in regular society that we enjoy that allows us to get that integration going on. But by and large, you see where I'm going here, right? We're not going to go out of our way to earn the ability to go out into our community and be stared at like some people stare at ants through a magnifying glass, all right? I get that every time I go out. The only few times I manage to not have that happen is when I'm out with my mom at places anywhere in Branson, really, because they just kind of back away from her slowly. There are a plethora of articles, some referred to above, that empirically demonstrate the effectiveness and power of replacing inappropriate form of communication with an appropriate form that serves the same function. Biggest thing, and I've been saying this since I worked for the state, that you could possibly do is not just give us a replacement behavior, but explain the logic as to why. We are highly analytical, logical creatures. Explain to me why this is better than this, and I will probably adopt it. It may take a few hundred times of telling me, but I will eventually make it a part of me. You see where I'm going with here. Use logic, people. We're going to close out on this. What we're learning from all of this here is the things that the JRC teaches is not really skills that can lead to success out there in the real world. Their token examples of people going to college are people taking handfuls of classes. They are on and off at college classes for not really something that's going towards a degree. I'm not shaming them. I'm saying their PR does not match their actual results. We're going to close. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. I will see you next vid. Bye-bye.